Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. Apologies, we are going scraggly, scruffy hair and a cup of tea today. Basically, I made a cup of tea and then suddenly realised it was my lunch break and I had planned to film a video, and so, you know, I'm not neglecting the cup of tea, I'm not going to leave it be. So here we are. But I'm here today to talk about the books that I bought this time last year, and let's have a look and see, did I actually get around to reading them? This is very much inspired by Greg over at Supposedly Fun, who also goes through his books a year after he bought them to assess, is he actually reading the things that he buys? Should I be prioritising anything? Should I be taking anything off my TBR? I just really like that format, so I'm wanting to bring it into my own channel, especially because I've said this year that working down my TBR is a really big goal of mine. And I think part of that is also assessing my buying habits. So today we are looking at my July-August 2022 haul, in which I picked up 12 books. And yeah, let's just get into them and see, did I actually end up reading them? Book number one is Breaking Into Song, Why You Shouldn't Hate Musicals by Adam Lenson. Now, you would think, Charlotte, that seems exactly like your cup of tea. You know, it is basically Adam Lenson's essays about musical theatre and why all of the arguments that he's ever heard from other people saying that they don't like musicals are kind of invalid. And I picked this up because obviously this is preaching to the converted. I adore musical theatre, and at base level I agree with a lot of the things that he's saying, especially in regards to this idea of like, people are so willing to say I hate all musicals, but musicals are not a genre, they are a medium. And when you put it into the perspective of musicals being a medium of art, it sounds as ridiculous as it would be if you said, oh, I hate all books, or I hate all films, all TV shows. And if they do, like if somebody said to you, oh, I hate all books, your response would be, well, maybe you just haven't found the right one. Like, you can't possibly know that you hate every single book. But people are much more willing when somebody says, I hate all musicals, to be like, yes, that seems like a reasonable thing to think. And Adam Lenson is saying musicals are all very different, and within any sort of artistic medium, be it books, films, stage, TV, there are different genres and subgenres within each medium. There are different ways of approaching a musical. So how can you possibly like accurately say that you hate them all? And yeah, I was really hoping to like this one, but unfortunately I did end up DNFing it. In fact, I DNF'd it twice. I recently tried to pick this one back up, and I can't get on board with his writing. While I'm agreeing with a lot of the things he's saying, I just find like his actual arguments to be really weak. And for me, they're just not specific enough. Like right at the beginning, he'll talk about how people say that they hate musicals, and they're usually thinking about those musicals. Musicals that apparently we all think of when we think of, oh, that kind of musical. And I'm kind of sitting here like, which musicals are you talking about? Please be specific, Adam. But he'll do this throughout the book. He'll say kind of these bland basic statements, but then not back it up with evidence. I don't know, I've just been treated by way too many musical theatre video essays on YouTube where people are backing up what they say and citing their sources and being specific about what they're talking about, that when I'm reading a book, I want that same kind of rigour. In fact, I want more rigour. You have editors on your side. I don't know, I'm probably going to hold on to this because it is a book about musicals. I'll keep it in my collection, but it's off my TBR. I just didn't really enjoy it. That's so sad. Book number two in this book haul is Bargain Bin Rom Com by Lena Norms. Probably know Lena from her YouTube videos. She is absolutely fantastic, and I had to snap up her first poetry collection when it came out. I read this pretty much straight away and really loved it. This ended up on my 2022 best of video, so definitely one to check out. Then I think I bought what was the final book that I still had to get in my 6 Tudor Queens series. I got myself a copy of Katheryn Howard, which is the 5th book in the series. I would have read this, I think, in September of 2022. I think this one actually ended up rating 5th for me out of the 6. Really enjoyable. It's always interesting to see Katheryn Howard's life. I just feel like there are other books in the 6 Tudor Queens series that just hit a bit more for me. Then next up we have Femina, a new history of the Middle Ages through the women written out of it by Janina Ramirez. A medieval history that is really chronicling the lives of women, digging in especially into the source material that we have at our disposal that often doesn't end up being mentioned in medieval histories. This is Janina Ramirez really reclaiming these women's histories and putting it out to the forefront, and also talking about how medieval sources can be particularly like exclusionary of women. I read this pretty much straight away. I absolutely loved it. I would recommend reading this alongside Eleanor Yennege's The Once and Future Sex, which I read back in March and also absolutely loved. What a brilliant book. It's just a really fantastic time for medieval women's history writing. The next book that I picked up was Two Houses, Two Kingdoms by my beloved Katheryn Hanley, who is the author of Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior, one of my favourite historical books of all time. This is basically detailing the history of France and England from 1100 to 1300, so 2 centuries of both, well, a rather up and down relationship, let's say. I actually did a whole review video on this one, which I will link down below, but I thought this was such an interesting history. Katheryn Hanley really digging into how it was the personalities of the different leaders of England and France that really made the relationship between the two countries. Even though the traditional view is that England and France have always been very antagonistic, she's showing through her book that this isn't always the case. As I say, if you've got two personalities who actually want to get on, then the countries will get on. But if you have somebody who is being a bit more antagonistic, then you know what's going to happen next. Just really cementing Katheryn Hanley as one of my favourite medieval history writers, and I will go wherever she leads. Next up we have the first of my romance books, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is book 4 in the Bridgerton series. Now this is one that I had originally listened to on audiobook and was just picking up a copy, so I had already read this prior to the book haul. But as I've said many times before, this is definitely my favourite of the Bridgerton books, and I am very, very excited that we are getting this story in the next season. Then next up I had 2 books that were related to like beauty and skincare. So first off, Skincare by Caroline Hirons, and then Pretty Honest by Sali Hughes. Both books about, you know, general hair, makeup, skincare, how to look pretty, which I think I mentioned at the time I wasn't going to be including on my TBR. They'd just have in my collection. I was just feeling a little bit meh, and like I'd been neglecting my life, neglecting my beauty regimes, which I still feel like I am. And yeah, this was meant to be a prod for me to actually get back to doing all of those routines. I feel like I still need that. But yeah, these weren't officially added to my TBR, they're just added to my collection. Then next up we have The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang, a romance book that I read in August 2022. We've got the main character of Stella, who has got Asperger's, who after one too many rude comments from her parents decides that she needs to get more experience in dating and just generally wants to be taught how to become more dateable. It's really sad. Her family and her colleagues have basically trained Stella to think that because of her Asperger's, because of her different behaviours, that she is ultimately unlovable. It's really, really sad. But she decides that she's going to get away from this and that she's going to enlist a skilled individual to teach her how to be dateable. Enter Joshim, who is an escort, who Stella ends up hiring to basically give her dating lessons. Despite the fact that Josh's general escorting rule is that he doesn't have repeat clients, but something about Stella just really intrigues him. And Stella in turn feels really, really comfortable with Josh. And from there, love blooms. And yeah, I basically gobbled this up straight away after buying it in August. It's very, very sweet. I wouldn't say that this is like my favourite romance book ever. And this is reminding me that Helen Hoang has other books in this series, and maybe I need to check those out. But if you're into a cute love story, then this is one that you might want to check out. I also picked up Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. Bought this one in August, read it in February this year. I have read 2 other Christina Lauren books aside from this. The first one being The Unhoneymooners, and then recently I read The True Love Experiment. And honestly, even though I think Josh and Hazel is one of the more popular books, I would actually say that I think it's my least favourite of the ones that I've read. Like, it's still very, very cute, but I think especially, like, Hazel is a bit of an acquired taste. You know, if she was in my real life, then I would defend her to the end of the earth, but when you're reading her, it's kind of like, oh my god, Hazel, what are you doing? But yeah, read this one, enjoyed it. Probably not going to go back to it again though. The next book is The Cookbook of Common Prayer by Francesca Haig. This is one that I was really, really excited for, and I actually got quite a way into this, about 200 pages, and then I just suddenly lost interest in it, and I have since DNF'd it, and I don't know what happened. I think I just completely ran out of steam with this book. So this is a contemporary story about a family in which it's the mum and the dad and then their 3 children. Eldest son, middle daughter, youngest son. And while their eldest son is, I think he's on study abroad in England, they get a phone call informing them that their son has tragically died in a water-related accident. And obviously the family are absolutely reeling from this, but we find out very quickly that the middle child, their daughter, is actually being hospitalised with anorexia, and she is very, very close to death's door. And so the parents make the decision not to tell her about her brother's death because they are so concerned that this news will finish her off. Meanwhile, their youngest son, who is still primary school age, is kind of stuck in the middle and not really being communicated with, not really being told what to do, and having to deal with his brother's death and his sister's illness kind of on his own. A plot point that they hadn't quite gotten to where I was, but I think is where it was building up to, was that the mother was going to start sending fake letters as if it was from her eldest son to her daughter to kind of keep up the pretense that he's still alive. It was really poignant, really tragic, and I don't know what happened. I just completely lost interest and was kind of forcing myself through the book. This might be one that I want to go back to, but for now it is like off my TBR. I think I've still got my copy though, so we'll see how we go. And then finally, The History of Magic by Chris Gosden. Another one that sadly I haven't gotten around to, and I have fully taken this one off my TBR. I think I just saw it because it was in the works. I got very excited by it, and then in the end just decided that this isn't really one for me. I feel like it would be a very interesting history, but I realised that the reason I don't read a lot of books about magic is because I just don't have any interest in it. I feel like this book will find me again at the right time if I do ever want to read it. But for right now, when I'm trying to be strict with myself about my TBR and only trying to read books I am actually genuinely interested in, this one's just been taken right off. Don't worry, I donated it to my local library and I'm sure that they were very happy with it. So yes, out of the 12 books that were on this book haul, I read 7 of them, DNF 2, Unhauled 1, and 2 of them were just generally not on my TBR, were just being added to my collection. So I feel like that's not too bad. Obviously, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm DNFing everything that I pick up, but I feel like I had reasons. I had good reasons with the ones that I did DNF or just decide not to read. So in the end, even though it is just over half of the books that I picked up I ended up properly reading, I'm not totally happy with that, but I'm fairly happy with that. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.